The goal of this video is to introduce you to a wide web of companies which may be of interest to Petro Matad investors. They are not only companies directly owned by Petro Matad, either fully or partially, but also companies where there is no ownership by Petro Matad, but they are somehow interesting since they could be partners, affiliates, operate in the same space with the same familiar names of owners, ultimate beneficial owners, executives, and so on. Another purpose behind this is to clarify what Sandstep actually means. This is because when we find a news article or a project that is being developed by Sandstep company, it may not necessarily mean it is something to do with Petro Matad. This took me a while to wrap my head around, and this very complicated diagram should be able to explain it. This information was assembled manually. I tried to do it as accurate and comprehensive as possible, but I cannot vouch for 100% accuracy. However, I left enough information there so you can verify it yourself if needed through Mongolian registry and other searches. We will look at what the colors mean, what the numbers mean, and so on, and then we will look at names of people, since there are plenty mentioned on the screen, so we know who they are. In terms of organization, it tries to build the group structure and ownership with colors representing the entities behind it and their relationships. Therefore, everything blue, for example, here, dark blue, will be of interest to Petro Matad investors directly because they are our own entities. And then anything mixed with the blue will be part owned by Petro Matad. Same goes for any other color. Then we have numbers, like 387 here, and the aim of that is to put a timeline in place when the entities were set up, so we have the understanding of what is happening in terms of time. Then we also have addresses. So here, for example, address A, address C. I will not list the whole address because they are very long, but the purpose behind it is to group the entities by address, because they may not share the same color, they may not seem related, however, they are based, I think, exactly at the same address, and they also share the name of the people. Next, we have the people involved. We will start with Zula. Zula is a known name to Petro Matad investors because she is the CEO of the Sandstep JV, and she also holds a government role in Mongolia, advising to the Prime Minister on energy transition and investments. She has recently put together the European Investment Bank scheme where 1 billion euros should be made available to Mongolia for renewable projects, where Sandstep and Petro Matad are set to benefit from it. Next name that will pop up quite frequently, but is very difficult to find, is Mr. Anand. Anand is an experienced banker from Mongolia, and his name will be in the timeline from the beginning, from Wolfson entities up until recently 2025. He will frequently appear in executive roles, owner, part owner, or ultimate beneficial owner. Next, we have Tananchad, who is the chairman and founder of Ensurf, a company that we will look into later. And then we have Paul, who is the CEO of Chatham Park Development, a US executive and investor. Given the complexity of the structure here, it is difficult to put a starting point somewhere. But if we take it in terms of timeline, we will start in July 2011, where Wolfson Mongolian entity has been set up. We know Wolfson as the partner in our Sandstep JV. It appears to have been set up by Zula, who was the director or executive from 2011 to 2025 and remains a UBO until present. Recently, in 2025, there has been a change where Mr. Anand is holding the executive role instead of Zula. We will see this year and Anand popping up very frequently. So therefore, it seems there have been some kind of restructuring, which will start to make sense later on. Going chronologically, another entity that was set up after that in July 2015 is Gathering Energy, which is a Mongolian entity. It could be translated loosely as geothermal energy or earth energy. It was set up by Zula, or she has been there since the beginning, and she's been the UBO since 2020 until present. The activities listed with the company are foreign trade and crop farming. This entity has been set up a long time ago. We haven't heard about it. However, it started to fit into the structure later on. I will now not focus on the relationships, just the chronological order of company setup dates. Next, we have Sandstep. This is a very familiar name to us. It's the first time Sandstep appears on the timeline. It was first set up on its own. It is not very straightforward for me to understand the ownership structure of that in the past because the company was set up in 2015. There is no record from 2015 of involved people or companies. The first mention is Sandstep Energy taking ownership in 2016. Then 2019, it's the same company or company with the same name. And then in 2022, we have Ensurf Asia Equity Party Limited coming on as a part owner with Sandstep Energy. The ultimate beneficial owner and the executive is now Mr. Tananchad, who is the founder of Ensurf. We can see there is a relationship to Ensurf Asia Equity Party Limited, which was set up in 2018, but I will follow timeline first to company number 4, and that is Tallinn Energy, set up in 2016, again by Zula. However, in 2025, Mr. Anand has taken the role of the executive and the UBO. Following after that, in August 2016, Sunstep Energy, sitting on the same address as Tallinn Energy, was set up. They are not related in the structure, however. Sunstep Energy is the company that is listed or named in some of the renewable projects detailed early on in this document, which is from Mongolian Japanese Business Forum. We've got Sunstep Energy as the one company who is behind the 10 megawatt solar power plant in Choir, or Choir, depends how you want to read it. That is a familiar location to us because Petro Matad has announced that they are behind the 50 megawatt battery system in the same location. There is already an existing 10 megawatt power plant there in the present, operating since 2018, and this company is behind that. The company also has a 50 megawatt solar power plant and the self-contained BSS battery energy storage system, which we know from our RNS announcements. I created this structure just so I can understand this one thing. Are Sunstep projects our projects, Petro Matad's? Are we involved? And the answer is not necessarily so. And that is because we have no relationship with Sunstep Energy in terms of ownership. However, we know from the 2024 annual report that Tim Bushell is the non-executive director sitting at Sunstep Energy, even though we have no ownership of this entity. This is the annual report from 2024, noting that Timothy is a non-executive director at Sunstep Energy. In that entity, we also have Zula and other names. Current owner, though, is familiar Mr. Anand. He is also the UBO of that entity. Therefore, I think the logical sequence here was that Wolfson, the original entity, wanting to pursue renewable projects, set up Sunstep Energy, who holds the licenses and is behind the projects. Next in the timeline, we have a creation of a Petro Matad owned entity, which was later renamed. The current name is Sunstep Renewable Energy Party Limited in Singapore, and previously it was Petro Matad Singapore Party Limited. The name change comes a lot later, so it was set up in August 2016 and renamed in 2024. It is possible, maybe even highly likely, that even at that time, Mike Buck had a plan with sustainable energy in Mongolia, as these things happened at around the same time. Next, we have two entities that are not directly linked to any other entity here. However, they may be of interest since they sit at the same address as this original entity, Gazarin Energy and Tallinn Energy. They are Sunstep Energy Holding and Gobi Electric Power. With all of them, we have Zula being involved heavily, and also Anand. Their purpose, as listed in the registry, was to conduct research on renewable energy and project management of those renewable projects. In 2025, we have the large-scale movement here, consolidation or reorganization of what is happening and who is driving it, moving the ownership to Mr. Anand. After that, we've got Ensurf Asia Equity being set up. That is apparently a funding entity and partial owner behind Sunstep Energy. Then something interesting happened, and I don't have enough evidence to say that with certainty. However, in the UK, we had an entity set up called Sunstep Energy Limited. It was not directly linked to any other entities here, except for the name and date. It was dissolved in 2024, which is just before we renamed the Petro Matad entity to Sunstep Renewable Energy Party Limited. Therefore, there seems to be too many coincidences for this to be an unrelated event. Director listed there is approximately 31-year-old Japanese lady called Ayushi Suzuki. I could not find any information about this person whatsoever. The address listed there was residential, and I was not able to make any further links. One possible link is that from the pitch document with Sunstep Energy projects, like the Choir power plants and battery storage systems. We know that they were between Mongolia and Japan, and there was some Japanese funding. Aishi is from Japan. Therefore, it is possible that at that point there was the intention to fund some of the projects through Japan this way. However, there is not enough information to really confirm that. We know that plans have probably changed, or the purpose of the entity has been fulfilled since it has been dissolved. Next, we have SSP Wind Energy, which is conveniently hiding the Sunstep name in the acronym Sunstep Power. It was originally owned by Tallinn Energy, and in 2025, during the restructuring, Anand has taken the role of the UBO and the owner. And previously, Zula was the executive. There is another entity that was set up on the same address at around the same date, SSB Manlai Energy, which was owned by Tallinn Energy and is now owned and managed by Anand. Next, we have Sunstep Power, set up in April 2023, which is now, well, in April 2023, it was owned by Petro Matad through this entity above, and Wolfson Mongolian entity. The ownership moved in 2024 to the Singaporean entity, and it was managed by Zula, where the management again moved to Anand. Zula remains as UBO. Then we have entity number 14, set up in April 2023 at around the same date. We can see there is a number of companies set up at the same date, same month, same year. And it is CCP Blue Energy. We could guess that this is something to do with hydrogen. It was owned by Zula, and now Anand is the UBO, where Sunstep Power is the owner since September 2025, which is very recently. We could therefore think there has been some progress in the hydrogen project. Chronologically, after that company was set up, we have a name change to Sunstep Renewable Energy Part Limited. In the summer of 2024, we have Nanobo Group Mongolia entity being set up. The relationship will start making sense when we look at entity 17, and that is Salkin Shand Green Holding. Again, using the SSP prefix. Mr. Onon, the original owner, is the founder of BDSEC. BDSEC is probably one of the biggest financial companies in Mongolia. Therefore, we could assume that there is something being financed and finalized to do with green projects, and it may be related to Sunstep since it is using the name. However, purely looking at ownership, there is currently no relationship. That may not mean it has nothing to do with us if we are let's say, the contractor behind this project. BDSEC set up and funded a private fund called GCKT, which presumably funds and owns this entity as confirmed by the registry. This company, BDSEC, is, for example, behind several green bonds and the largest M&A transaction in Mongolia. This now paints a picture of a large amount of activity, heavily tilted towards 2025, where there has been some kind of restructuring, and we have funding parties, we have construction companies or developers known for their renewable projects from Canada, from Mongolia. We have funding from Thailand, Singapore, and we have quite a few company changes. Why it is important to understand all of this is because even I made a mistake assuming Richwell Engineering, the construction company behind the 50 megawatt power plant in Choir, is related somehow to Sunstep, since when I look at the land registry in Mongolia, I can see that I have Sunstep as the company behind this extended area here, which is just next to the existing 10 megawatt power plant. I will zoom out so you see where that is. However, I made a mistake thinking Sunstep means Petro Matad. In this case, we have Sunstep LLC. And when we look at the structure, Sunstep LLC is right here, where we are not directly involved. I have reached out to Petro Matad and they confirmed that the 50 megawatt power plant is not within the JV itself, which aligns with the RNS announcements because we never heard of a 50 megawatt power plant. We only heard of the 50 megawatt battery storage system. To close this, I would like to draw some conclusions, but because of the complexity, it is very difficult to say definitely what is planned and what is going on. There are two entities that we have not heard about from Petro Matad, I think. On the right, I've got the annual report from 2024, which lists the entities in the group, and the entities missing there are CCP Blue Energy, which is owned by Sunstep Power, and Wolfson Energy, which is also owned by Sunstep Power. We have 50% stake in that through the Sunstep Renewable Energy Party JV, where the other half is Sunstep Energy, originally set up by Wolfson. We can see that previously Mike Pluck had nothing to do with Wolfson. However, now there is an entity, Wolfson Energy, where Mike and Mr. Anand are the UBOs since quite recently, September 2025. One thing that is not 100% clear is, are the entities here somehow relevant to us, or are they all separate projects that will not involve us? Or are we a contractor there somewhere, perhaps not an owner, but still working with them? It is at this point very difficult to say, and we will be tracking the news and connecting the dots. Overall, what I hope you will take away from this is that there is a very intense activity going on in the renewable space, with many companies being restructured, ownerships being changed, and what appears to be funding secured through various means, mainly via Singapore, originating in Thailand, and also through Mongolia. We also seem to have encountered construction companies or developers experience with building large-scale renewable projects. What has effect on us and how we play a role in that, if any, will become clear only through official announcements or perhaps through ownership changes within the group of companies. I hope this has been somehow useful and you will get some insight from it. If you find any mistakes in this, please let me know and we will look at that together.